It's my honor to introduce a man, a true trailblazer, who has broken down barriers and challenged the status quo, who really needs no introduction. One of California's most influential elected officials who, according to the New York Times, rose to become one of the most powerful state legislators in the nation. A reformer of the criminal justice system, a champion for public education, and someone whose historic career in public service has left a lasting impact on this great state. We owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to you, Mayor and Speaker Emeritus Willie L. Brown, Jr. Now, not everyone watching may be familiar with your early life story. Could you share with us your path to economic mobility that had such an incredible impact upon your family as well?
I was born in a little place called Mineola in southeast Texas, in a place that was 4,500 or so people, with fewer than 2,000 of those people being people of color, and only black at that time. There were no Asians, there were no Latinos in that particular town, and what have you. And it was a farm community. It actually currently has the title of the bean capital of the country. And of course, doing all of that work, the packaging and shipping and the picking and what have you, were black people. And my family and my friends were all associated with that. We were also cotton pickers. We also did the berry picking. And people who lived in that town that were black, if they went to school, they were released from school on certain occasions to help harvest and produce the value that this little bitty town allegedly had. For school purposes, you only went to the 10th grade. You didn't go to the 11th and 12th grade. It was not until 1949 that Mineola actually had a school that went to 12th grades. The nature and the quality of the teaching was suspect, although dedicated, because there were only black teachers, only black students, and only black teachers. But the quality of the learning process was somewhat limited because you used only the excess books and the yesterday books from the white part of the city school district. So it was a real challenge, frankly, to have been born, raised, and allegedly educated through 12 grades. Business of coming out of that school and landing in San Francisco, where you assume that you are ready for college. Ordinarily, in those days, 1951, black kids went only to black colleges. Black kids did not go to any other schools that were not black. And I actually went to Prairie View A&M, Agricultural and Mechanical College, in a place called Hempstead, Texas. Not too far away from Houston, but in Hempstead, Texas. I got assisted quickly in being sent home because of some conduct that I engaged in asserting that I should be able to do something differently from what that university desired to have you do. They sent me home. My mother, who wouldn't tolerate me coming home, But I was clearly difficult to manage, and so she sent me out here to California. Oh, Lord have mercy, how great that was, because for the first time I actually saw a place and a space and people that were different from anything else I'd ever seen before. It was magical, almost, in my opinion, and that's how I got to San Francisco and got my start.
And how did you move up from there? I mean, you went into law school.
Well,
and became one of the most powerful men in the state.
Well, let me tell you the story of how I got here in August 1951, because my mother had made it very clear to her brother, my uncle, that yes, he can come live with you, but he must be in school and he must be in church, which means I had to get into school and get in church. And I entered San Francisco State, and the rest is history, because San Francisco State is now called university, then it was called college. They had a design program for newly entry students. I became a member of the ROTC, which was a military training operation for air persons who wanted to be in the Air Force. And by then I had become really conversant with San Francisco and with all the things that go on in the city, and in particular, being obedient to my mother again, I had joined church, Jones Methodist Church on Post Street in the Fillmore of San Francisco. I had joined the NAACP. I had joined a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. I had joined a theatrical company run by a guy who became a judge in the city, a guy named Joseph Kennedy. And so by the time, things really got going for me, I was a true San Franciscan, a true university student, although at a state college at that time. And then knowing, after I graduated from San Francisco State, I was still not ready to be a participant, because I had majored in political science with a minor in philosophy. And a buddy of mine, another person who was a longtime military guy, veteran, attended SF State from Brooklyn, New York, who told me about his goal in life was to be a lawyer. And I learned from him. I participated in the politics and debates at SF State and all those kinds of things. And in conversations and listening to him, all of what I had done seemed like natural for law school. So when he went down to be interviewed to become a lawyer, I went down with him, and that's how I ended up going to law school. I ended up going to politics with advice and counsel and directions from a group of white guys headed by a guy named Phil Burton, the first congressman that I'd ever met. And he's the one that led me into the world of politics. And a couple of the labor unions are the ones that embraced my candidacy, along with the Black Preachers Association of San Francisco, that assisted me in ultimately running for office. Well, unfortunately, this nation has never been dedicated on a practical basis to trying to extend full participatory opportunities to people of color for long range and permanent productivity. And you graduated from college, you graduate from law school, you may or may not get a job. When I graduated from law school, there were only one black graduate in the law school class. Me was it. I got offered and I accepted a clerkship with federal Judge Carter. Unfortunately, he died before my eligibility to be a clerk was completed. His death prompted me to have to go do what I did in the early part of my life, and that's find a way to access the system and try to survive. So I became a practicing lawyer. Well, I'm brand new. I have no idea, frankly, what you really are supposed to do if you're a practicing lawyer. But as usual, I went to court 3 or 4 times before the day I was scheduled to represent this individual. I went and watched other lawyers do what they were doing, and in particular the white lawyers, because there was almost no black lawyers doing any of this. And so by the time I got to court, I think conducted myself in a way that appeared to be a real lawyer. And it was in such a fashion that the judge was openly complimentary. And when I walked out after that presentation, I got in the hallway, 2 or 3 people approached me as to whether or not I could possibly represent them. And that's how the practice of law commenced for Willie Lewis Brown, Jr. When I was not lawyering, however, I was in the world of politics, because in college I had become part of the political operation, and that caused me to go to the political meetings and meet people there. I also had concluded that if I was going to really be in the business of lawyering, people had to know me. So I began to take every opportunity to introduce myself to organizations and to people. I also participated heavily in volunteering for lawyer purposes. At the time, they didn't have a public defender in the federal system. They now do, but they didn't at that time. They had a public defender in the state system. Well, I knew from information supplied to me by others that you could register with the federal system, and the courts may select you to represent someone who didn't have a lawyer. I did those things. Everywhere there was the opportunity to step up and get a connection, and in some cases get paid for it, I did that. So it became a 24-hour-a-day marketing within the framework of the rules about marketing Willie Brown. You really do have to be prepared to do 24/7 participation in what affects the lives of all people, of all color, of all gender, of sexual preferences. You really do have to be about offering your services, and that usually affords an opportunity, and it becomes cumulative for impressional purposes. It becomes rewarding, as in the accumulation of credits, so to speak, whether it's from the college days or law school days or post any of those. It becomes the foundation for your step in ultimate success. And in many cases, the remunerations or merited that you got based upon the quality of what you've undertaken to do. Although hard work might get some people there, you really do have to address that issue. you really have to make sure that your participation in organizations like the NAACP, in organizations like the Urban League, in organizations like the fraternities and the sororities, and others who engage in it. You have to build the friendships that you need with people who may be in positions already, and you must do so in multiple cases beyond your own racial identity in order to get there. But you must be assertive. You must not ever abandon the need to be aggressive about equality and equal opportunity. And that goes to say, without a doubt, probably the most difficult in the world of finance. When you ask about and have me comment on that component of it, that world still is not necessarily open to people of color. But people of color has to address that issue, and they've got to address it without apology, literally without apology, and without any fear that their assertion may cost them an opportunity. That may be true, but their assertions, if sound, and their comments about that inequality, it could very well extend to others to walk through the door. They may have opened the door, but somebody else may walk through, and you got to be prepared to live with that. But that door has to be open.
I want to ask you this one final question, because we are celebrating Black History Month. Why is Black history so important in the United States?
Well, Black history is as important, if not more important in some cases, than history, period. History is important to all of us. We tend to learn from what others did before us. And in that process, we get the opportunity to enhance upon that learning that occurred before us. So studying history, in my opinion, is a masterful requirement, frankly, in every respective category. And then when you know that this nation, from a Black person's perspective, certain things occurred that translated into slavery, that translated into Jim Crow, that translated into unequal application, that translated into continuous discrimination beyond the change of the law. If you don't know those things, and you're Black, you're gonna be in trouble, because you will be so shocked and so stressed that somehow you're not being afforded the same opportunity. You're not being judged based on your ability. You're being judged on something else that in many cases is not easily identifiable. Black history affords you the opportunity to know all of that without waiting to find it out by your own personal experience. And so Black history, particularly for Black people, is kind of the beginning of time.
Mayor and Speaker Emeritus, thank you.